Welcome to our session today, and thank you for joining, everyone. Um, I cannot find our first speaker. That was going to be Devin Sarno. I don't know. I hope she's okay. She hasn't responded to me. So we're going to just start with a video that Lisa has sent me. It is Lisa Wilson, and her session is, let me find exact the name of the session. Yeah, I'm sorry for that, but uh, okay, let me find her session and I will tell you her name in a moment. Yeah, things happen. I'm sure Devin will be okay, but I cannot find her, so I can't wait whether she's going to respond or not. So our first session is going to be a pre-recorded video of Lisa, and it's about coaching. Let me start it for you. Thank you for joining. I hope you enjoy our sessions today.
Unfortunately couldn't be here live, so I won't be able to answer your questions at the end, but I will share my contact information so that you're able to connect with me after the video. So the question we're asking today is AI coming for our jobs? We've all heard this. If you're a leader, not to worry, your job is going to be more valuable than ever. Now, when I was preparing this speech, I did some research where I asked AI, actually, where AI had already taken over. I asked ChatGPT what jobs have already been affected through AI. And it gave me a list that it pulled from a site called expertbeacon.com. Now, the list was from August 2024, so it's not completely recent, but I'm pretty sure there hasn't been too much change since then. So the first was customer service representatives. Now, we've all been at the end of a phone call where that automated person is, or the automated assistant is asking us to press numbers, or more recently say what it is that you're looking for. The second was data entry clerks. Now, we used to have someone keep minutes, and now there's these lovely recording things that'll just keep the minutes for you. So even on Zoom or something like this. In my experience, those doing data entry also had other skills, so they just had more time for the other stuff. This actually just freed up their time. But I know that there were some areas where there were employees who were simply doing data entry. They were just re-recording from meetings or they were writing out the recording from meetings and things like that. So there were some areas where people lost their jobs. The third one is manufacturing and assembly line workers. So now this one's been going on for a long time. I know when I was working in a manufacturing plant in the early 2000s that we had started already using robots. Now at the time, they weren't taking over anyone's job because someone had to be there to watch the robots. I think they've probably gotten a little bit more sophisticated now than they used to be, but at the time they needed to be monitored so nobody actually lost their job. The fourth, and this one makes me nervous, is transportation and logistics. There are already autonomous vehicles. These are vehicles that drive themselves. And again, this makes me a little nervous. Now, where I live, we don't see them. And again, I asked ChatGPT this, how do they stay on track? And they use a couple of different things. One is the lines on the road, which you don't see here through quite a few months of the year because they are snow-packed and or the lines actually come off because of all the snow and things that are on it. But the other one was they use GPS, and they didn't say through satellite at this point. So for right now, we don't necessarily have the best cell service all along our road, so I think we won't see it for a little while longer. For those that don't know, I live in Northern Ontario in Canada. So we're not quite there yet, but I know that in other places that is happening. And then last but not least, the fifth that it shared was retail positions. So inventory management, we've been seeing they've been using AI for years, right? We've all seen the scanners. That's your inventory management, especially in the larger stores. But now we're also seeing it in smaller stores, in the corner stores everywhere. But you're also now seeing things like self-check checkout, and we're doing way more online shopping. So retail positions definitely have been and will continue to be affected. Now, as AI has replaced these jobs, it opened doors to other jobs. And while I was working at the manufacturing plant, several employees actually went on training so that they could maintain the robots as well as program them or reprogram them as needed. So they didn't lose their jobs, they just got new skills. Now, while AI excites some of us, it's making many of us very nervous for sure. With any other change in our world, we're going to learn to adapt. There's still many things AI cannot do. Now, AI is very powerful. It can analyze data, it can spot trends, it can automate tasks, but leadership isn't about having all the information. It's about understanding the story behind the numbers. So let me give you an example. Years ago, I was working for a company, and there was a couple of months where all of a sudden our sick leave spiked quite high. Now, if you look at the data alone, AI may have flagged it as a serious problem: low engagement, poor management, maybe even policy abuse. But as humans, we knew the real cause. A terrible flu had gone around town. Now, this was years before COVID, just to be clear. So AI could see the pattern, but it couldn't understand the reason behind it. This is why leaders are more essential than ever. AI can provide the data, but AI can't interpret context and nuance. So numbers don't tell the full story. A drop in performance might not be a leadership issue. It might be a supply chain delay, a market shift, or even something as simple as flu season. AI can't make ethical and strategic decisions. AI can optimize for efficiency, but leaders make decisions that balance business needs with human impact. Now, AI can't build trust or relationships. AI can analyze emotions, but it actually doesn't feel in them. So leaders are the ones who need to check in, listen, and inspire. And AI can't think creatively or innovate. AI can predict outcomes, but it can't dream up new possibilities the way human can. And last but not least, AI can't navigate crisis and uncertainty. AI relies on past data, but the leaders are the ones who make the tough calls in those unpredictable situations. And I mean, we all live in a world right now that is incredibly unpredictable, so we need strong leaders. We need to be able to see what's coming so that we can make decisions that fit our current and upcoming environments. As AI advances, our role as leaders actually doesn't diminish. It becomes more critical. The future won't be about choosing between AI and humans. It'll be about leaders who know how to use AI while still leading with wisdom, empathy, and creativity. Also, just because we can does not mean we should. As leaders, we need to be intentional about how we use AI, ensuring we are careful to evaluate what's safe and ethical. It's up to us to draw the lines and make decisions that align with our values as well as the well-being of those we lead. The leaders who thrive won't be the ones who work the hardest. They'll be the ones who connect the deepest. So how do we make sure we are the leader who thrives? Today, I'm going to do just that for you. We're going to walk through what I call the roots of leadership. So yes, roots. When we talk about leadership, we often hear about pillars or foundations, and both give the impressions of strong and solid, but unmoving and intimidating structures. Now, most people used to believe that that's what it was to be a leader, but it's not what we need now. When you think of roots, what do you picture? I hope you're picturing a tree, because trees sway in the wind. They're strong and solid with their roots, but when the wind blows, they just shift. And that's what our world needs from its leaders now. It needs our leaders to be able to bend and shift with changing technologies like AI and worldviews. We want roots, like tree roots. They keep us strong and solid, but allow us to bend and shift when the wind blows. So now we're going to learn the 4 roots that I use when I'm coaching leaders, or that I shared in my book, Leading with Ease. And I'm just going to share them on this. Whoops, wrong button. I'm going to share them on the screen. There we go. So the 4 roots are: know where you're going, know your role, know yourself, and know how to discuss the tough stuff. And These 4 routes are going to allow you to inspire your team to work as a cohesive unit. They'll be more motivated and aligned. It'll allow you and the team to reach heights you've never imagined. You'll be leading with ease. Better yet, it'll be easy to build the team because when people love working for you, they share it with everyone they know. AI can't do that. Now, I worked for a company at one point that did the first 2 very well. The company was called Magna International. Magna had a vision and a mission statement, but that's not what stuck with me. Now, just out of curiosity, does your company have a mission or a vision statement? Do you know what it is? And if you're a leader, does your team know what it is? Now, Magna had something they called the Magna Charter. It was a list of things that every employee could expect when working there. For my history buffs in the room, it's loosely based on the Magna Carta. So the first one I remember the most, and it shaped everything I did. And the first one was job security. And I'm paraphrasing here. It said, under the title job security, it said, no one can guarantee job security. The way we work to ensure job security is to make a better product at a better price. Now, I was in human resources. I never touched a part. But I knew my role in helping to make a better product at a better price because it was something my leaders talked about constantly. Now, have you ever worked somewhere where your role was so clear? If you have, I promise you, it feels very good. So everyone played a part in the innovation and elevation of this company. From the general managers to the custodians, each one was given an opportunity to share their ideas. And if it helped cut costs, they were rewarded substantially because we were making a better product at a better price. There were gifts and huge parties, even this amazing, beautiful gala at the end of the year. Now, do you think I did some good work there? I did. I did some of my best work for them. And I know others that say the same thing, even after, like me, they've moved on to other opportunities. Every month, we had an employee meeting and reported how things were going. We had finance, safety, human resources, updates on projects, and so on. We also had an employee who was responsible for organizing and supporting all those ideas that had come forward. We're going to call him Edmund. This was Edmund's whole job, and there was an Edmund at every plant. Now talk about a focus on innovation. At one of these meetings, he shared a commercial for a running board. Now, a running board, in case you haven't seen them, are those big steps on the side of a truck or an SUV, and they help you get in the truck. Now, if you don't have a running boards on the truck, it's very hard to get in, especially if you're in a skirt. Now, have you ever, the commercial that he started to share was for these running boards that folded back under the car when the door closed. So this way, they weren't in the way when you were driving. Now, we were all watching the commercial thinking, odd, why is he sharing this? Until Edmund followed with, cool, right? That running board came from a forklift driver at one of our sister plants. It's just up the road. Look, Magna ran with it, and it was sold to a manufacturer. Normally, a car parts company doesn't do things like that. They just get the specs for the part, and they make the part that the manufacturers want. But this time, this employee had an idea, Magna ran with it, and they sold it to a manufacturer. We went the other way around. So Magna's a really great example of a well thought out and executed company culture. Sorry, let me say that again. They're a well thought out and executed company culture. They were very clear on where they were going, how they were getting there, and what their values were. Their policies and procedures were all in line with that, and everyone was clear on what was expected from them, and they worked hard because of it. Now we're going to have a moment. I used to call them tweetable moments, or I wanted to call them tweetable moments, but Twitter brings up some politics that we don't want to get into, and it's now called X, so Xable moment doesn't really quite have the same ring. Then I thought of it as a social moment, but some of the introverts don't love to share everything that they learn. So we're going to call these wisdom moments. And feel free to write them down for yourself or share on social media and tag me. So if you aren't creating your culture, it will be created for you. And I'm going to say that again. As the leader, if you aren't creating your culture, it will be created for you. So as we go through, I will continue to reshare these. So now we know if we aren't creating our culture, it will be created for us. And you can translate that into your mission, vision, and values. It's not just about writing them and putting them up on the board. You need to live them every day. So here's the thing about that one as well. AI can't do that for us either. Now, is your team clear on where you're going and what's important to you? If not, have you been clear on where the team is headed and what's important to you? And what do you do to keep it top of mind for them? I just want you to ponder those things as you're going through. Now, look, if you aren't sure of the answer of any of those 3 questions, go back to your team after you listen to this and just simply ask them. So that's our first route, is know where you're going, know how you want to get there, and what's important on the trip. Now, have you ever been around when a company tries to change its culture? It's not easy. Just so we're clear, I've mentioned it a couple of times, but company culture is the shared values, behaviors, and practices that shape how employees interact and work within the organization. So it defines the work environment and influence employee engagement and success. It comes from 2 different things. There are the rules and regulations that are all written, but there's also the things that just sort of start to happen. So where do we eat lunch? Things like that, that just, there's maybe no rule about it, but it's just the way things are done there. So now I talked about Magna, and they had that solid and rich culture, what we're going to call a root. Their culture was well thought out. They shifted easily when they see a concern, and they were ingrained in that bend and shift mentality. Most importantly, they didn't break when they bent and shifted. Now, another company I worked for had a solid culture pillar. They were stuck in one way of doing things. And instead of bending, many broke, literally. Now, for some reason, people were constantly getting hurt. We were number 1 in something, but it certainly wasn't something to be proud of. And you'll never guess. It was death. We had a higher rate of death than any other company in our industry. Now, this company wasn't full of evil people. They had tried doing all the safety training. They put up the right posters, but people just weren't working safely. And it came to a head with 3 accidents. The first was someone stuck a pike pole into a conveyor belt, and he got sucked in, and he didn't survive. Now, the company rallied. No one felt good about this. We shared what happened. They shut down all the sites. They made all the employees come and listen to what was going on. They talked about the importance of locking out. They talked about the importance of locking out before attempting to clear a jam and sticking a pole into a conveyor belt. Look, this was done with everyone. All plants shut down for a time to go through what had happened, and so make sure that it didn't happen again. And within months, same accident at another site. 2 lives lost. It left the leaders just wondering what the... Everyone saw the results of the first accident. How could anyone think of doing this again? Look, this is not, again, it's not a company of evil people. They didn't want this. But they were doing it again. And why do you think it happened again so quickly? Well, it was common practice. And it didn't stop even knowing someone had died. Now, the third accident was our expert on a piece of equipment. He'd been flown around the world to help troubleshoot problems on this equipment. Everywhere, all the facilities we had, all over the world. He knew the inner workings of this equipment like the back of his hand. This particular morning, he was working with a junior employee who hadn't put on the proper tie-off. So he sent the junior employee to go away to get his harness. When the junior employee returned, our expert had been crushed. Our expert. He knew how to deal with this equipment safely. He had done it and taught it all over the world. We still don't understand what happened to him that day. I've said it 3 times now, but look, this was not a company full of evil people. The management team was so hurt and frustrated by these accidents. They had already been putting up the right posters and sharing information between sites when accidents happened, and they thought they were doing the right things, but it wasn't working. So they decided they clearly weren't doing what needed to be done. So they brought together staff members from all levels of the company and all across the countries that we worked in. And we created a group that would try to change that pillar narrative into more of that root-oriented culture. Now, I was very lucky to have attended that meeting. I mean, being involved right from the get-go and learning how a culture is going to change is a huge opportunity for anyone. But while I was in there, have you ever had one of those moments where you just blurt something that you probably shouldn't have said? Maybe you just say it out loud without thinking. Well, while I was at the meeting, I was listening to a supervisor from another site share what was happening at his site. And I got frustrated with it, and I just blurted out, "Since when is it not okay to say, if you don't work safely, you don't work here?" Now, everyone was a bit taken back, but I had just come from Magna. They would not have accepted anyone putting themselves at risk. I mean, that was never the message from Magna, but certainly that wouldn't have been allowed. Now, someone must have shared my blurt at some point through this, because I later heard the CEO say, "If you aren't on board with the changes, you will be de-hired." I think that was his way of being polite. But even with my blurt, we managed to continue the meeting, and we decided that the supervisors were the ones that needed to lead this change. And that initial group came up with a definition of leadership, and it's the one I use to this day. And the definition is that a leader models, teaches, creates, and develops a commitment to personal responsibility. I'm going to say that again. A leader models, teaches, creates, and develops a commitment to personal responsibility. The idea then is to move to mutual accountability. So I want you to picture that with me. A team where everyone does what they say they will do. And if they can't, they let you know in advance. Now, when someone can't meet a deadline, the team rallies together, its roots and its branches covering each other, and make sure that it happens. Now, that requires fully open and honest communication, which is sometimes easier said than done. So this is what you see here are the tale of 2 different approaches. See, Magna already did this very well. They were constantly innovating, and when they saw a problem, they just bent and shifted quickly, and the second company was still trying to figure that out. Now, they did move from a very production-oriented focus and to a focus where they were paying attention to their surroundings, making sure the proper safety mechanisms were in place for any job first, all while being accountable as a team of well-rooted branches. They moved to a culture where if you noticed a team member doing something unsafe, you didn't wait for upper management to come and reprimand them. You stepped up, helped, and ensured safety was the top priority. Now, what do you think happened to some of the people during this culture shift? Right? They didn't stay. Some because they were asked to move on, and others left on their own. So we're going to have another one of those wisdom moments now. So from this, I learned that when you're clear about where you're going, the right people are going to join you. I'll say that again. When you're clear about where you're going, the right people will join you. So now we know. If we aren't creating our culture, it will be created for us. And if we know where we know that if we are clear about where we are going, the right people will join us. And you picked up a definition of leadership there. A leader models, teaches, creates, and develops a commitment to personal responsibility. Now, that all sounds real easy, right? Right. Raise your hand if you're perfect like me. Now I've got you in your office by yourself raising your hand. Thanks. Right. We're all perfect until the kids are sick and the traffic is bad and I trip over those shoes one more time as I'm walking into the house. So how do we make sure that when life around us gets messy, we're still modeling the behavior that we want to see from our team? And this is our third route. It's the know yourself route. Now, have you ever worked a job where you wore many hats? At one point in my career, I had human resources, publicity, and health and safety reporting to me. Now, HR and health and safety was something that I was used to, but not publicity. I'd not only never been in a company that had publicity as a department or something, but I never certainly had them reporting to me. But now on top of all of that, it was the biggest team I'd ever had working for me. I suddenly had 10 people when prior I'd only ever had 2 or 3 people reporting to me. When you have 2 or 3 people, it's really easy to get to know everyone quickly. And so I thought, I need to shorten that get to know you phase. And how am I going to do that with 10 people? So what we did is we took a day away from the office and we learned about each other and what each of us needed to be at our best. So what we did was we did a DISC assessment, which I talk about again in the book. We learned that sometimes we need to bend to others and sometimes they need to bend to us. Now, one staff member, Brett, she was short-haired, short-statured, but very tall on thoughtfulness. She really took this to heart and figured out how to, what we call, manage up. By this, I mean she figured out how to manage me, her boss. Now, hands up if you love details. Again, I got you raising your hand in your office. I don't like details. I can take care of the details, but it sucks all of my energy. I'm really more of that big picture person. But Brett, she loved to discuss every detail, and she always knew all of them. And I love that about her because I never had to worry about it. Well, maybe sometimes I did. But prior to our session, she would give me all the details. I'm sure she could literally just see me squirming in my seat as she was doing it. And after a day away, she would come and give me an abbreviated version of events. Now, she still knew all the details, but she wouldn't go on and on with them, just shared the important ones, which I know sucked her energy. But one day, I got this knock on my door. Lisa, I have something to share, and you have to listen to all the details. Would you like them now or after lunch? Look, she was giving me the opportunity to fill my bucket before listening to all those details. And she continued this every time I needed to listen to all the details. Now, can you imagine how awesome that felt? Having someone take the time not only to understand me, but to action my needs as well. I thought, Lisa, you have to return the favor. Going forward, I invited her into meetings when new information was coming out of head office so that she could get all of her questions answered up front. Now, if you had your hand up a moment ago saying you love details, how good would that feel? Having all of your questions answered up front. Now, selfishly, it took the pressure off me to ask the questions as well. She and I had a great relationship because we each took turns bending to the needs of the other. We both had a very solid know yourself route, and that made it easy for us to bend without breaking. So we got another wisdom moment here. When you know yourself, it's easy to know when to bend and when not to. I'm going to say that again. When you know yourself, it's easy to know when to bend and when not to. So now we know. If we aren't creating our culture, it's going to be created for us. When you're clear about where you're going, the right people will join you. We got a definition of leadership in there. A leader models, teaches, creates, and develops that commitment to personal responsibility. And the better we know ourselves, the easier it is to know when to bend and when not to. But what if you aren't bending and neither are they? That's when those difficult or crucial conversations come into play. Now, have you ever had one of those uncomfortable conversations? I'm not talking about necessarily an all-out fight, but a conversation where you had definitely had differing opinions than the person you were talking to. Look, we've all had those, especially if you're in a leadership position. Being a leader also means you have to share the bad news at times. It's not fun, but it's necessary. So on that same team, there was another employee. This employee was in publicity. We're going to call him Mr. Happy. He was twice my age, very thoughtful, and very friendly. Now, remember, this is the first time I had publicity reporting to me. And this gentleman could retire at any moment. We had one of those factors. So if you'd worked there so long and plus your age brought you to 85, you could retire early. So this man could retire at any moment, but he thought it was funny not to share when. I had no idea what his job was. So naturally, what did I do? I started asking a lot of questions. I just wanted to better understand his role. Things like, where'd you go today? Why? Who are they? What do they have to do with us? Why are they important? Now, one day, Mr. Happy came into my office and he was not happy. He was upset. He was almost yelling and I could see tears in his eyes. He said, "Lisa, I have never been treated this way in the 30 years I have been doing this job. You're constantly questioning me and my ability to do this job." And I said, "Bull." I'll let you finish that word. "I have been asking you since I got here what your plans are for retirement. You think it's funny not to tell me. I've never done your role. And since you won't tell me, I've decided I have 6 months to figure out what you do so that I can replace you properly when you leave." Now he was stopped. He was completely stunned and it startled him, but he immediately calmed down. There was a file cabinet in my office and he just leaned back on the file cabinet so he could chat with me. Look, this could have broken us, but it didn't because we had a strong, difficult conversations route. While that was heated, we weren't disrespectful to each other. We didn't call each other names. He still wasn't ready to share when he would retire, but at least at this point, we cooperated so I could learn his job. I stopped going in and question what he thought was questioning him, and then he started to support me. So we met every Friday after that, and he explained what he had done that week, why it was important, who he was seeing, and why it was important to keep those particular people, keep a relationship with that particular group or company or whichever it was. So this brings us to another wisdom moment. If you aren't communicating, how will they know? Really, this difficult conversation could have been ended by me just calmly saying to him, "Look, I don't know your job. I need you to come and tell me." And I'm sure he would have been happy to do so. But I just took the initiative and started asking questions, which made him think he was being questioned, not asking a question that I was questioning his abilities. So if you aren't communicating, how will they know? So now we know if we aren't creating our culture, it will be created for us. When you're clear about where you're going, the right people will join you. The better we know ourselves, the easier it is to know when to bend and when not to. And we know that if we aren't communicating it, they won't know. Now, we started today with a question. Is AI coming for our jobs? And while AI is changing the way we work, one thing remains true. Leaders are more essential than ever. Because AI can process information, but it can't inspire. It can generate ideas, but it can't build trust. It can automate tasks, but it can't lead people. Just like strong tree roots, great leaders stay grounded in their purpose, but flexible in the face of change. AI might be the wind reshaping the landscape, but leaders who know where they're going, understand their role, know themselves, and embrace those tough conversations will not only survive, they'll thrive. So the question is not, will AI take our jobs? The real question is, are we ready to lead in a world where AI is just another tool in our toolbox? The challenge I leave you with today, that's the challenge I'm leaving you with today, because leadership isn't disappearing. It's becoming more important than ever. And the best leaders, they're the ones who know how to stand strong, bend when needed, and keep growing. AI can't do that, but you can. Now, I was hoping to be around for questions, but I won't be around for questions. But please feel free to contact me. You can connect with me on LinkedIn and ask questions. My LinkedIn profile is there. It's just Lisa May Wilson. Or you can reach me through other social media by just going to my website, lmwconsultation.ca. I do have some free ebooks available for you as well. That you go to lmwcoaching.ca/free-books. So there's a bunch of different things there. There is a full explanation of difficult conversations and steps to walk through when you're going there. So I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to download any of those things off of my site, or feel free to contact me through any of these means. If you go to my website, there is a way to contact me directly. Would be happy to hear from you. So thank you so much for listening in. I hope you've enjoyed this day. I believe I'm the last speaker. Again, my apologies for not being able to be here to answer questions, but please do feel free to contact me at any time. Have an amazing rest of your weekend.
Yeah, that was Lisa. He was the first speaker of our sessions today. Unfortunately, I haven't heard from Devin. I really hope she's okay. We have a small break of around 15 minutes. That was very interesting, at least for me. Some drops of wisdom there. And the important things of discussion. Yeah, it was a pity we didn't have Lisa with us. We can fire up some good discussions. But anyway, we are happy that she was able to deliver this pre-recorded session. Now I will play a video, just some graphics here while we wait for the next 15 minutes for Harini in a really technical session. Harini will get us through some DevOps, and we will be available to see implementing quality assurance, best practices for Azure DevOps pipelines. We are really switching areas and we are switching content. So stay with us, 15 minutes for Harini. Maybe she will be able to join a little bit earlier. We will see. Have a coffee, and thank you for joining. We'll be back in 15 minutes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just realized I was on mute. So again, I would like to thank Lisa for being able to deliver this pre-recorded session. I'm sorry I was in mute earlier. We have Harini in 15 minutes with a really technical session implementing quality assurance best practices in Azure DevOps pipelines. So we are switching area of interest and type of content. Lisa had a really interesting session. I wasn't expecting that interest, and I hope that she was here to discuss some things. But anyway, I'm sure we will have Lisa in another event of ours. She will be able to see the session, and I will send her our feedback. Thank you again for everyone being here today. Just hold on for the next 15 minutes, and Harini will be with us for Azure DevOps pipelines and quality assurance. So again, 15 minutes break. We'll be back. Thank you. Welcome back. Uh, it's time for our next session. We have Harini with us. Let me remind you a little bit about Harini's session, and I will let her introduce herself when she's ready. So the session is about implementing quality assurance best practices in Azure DevOps pipelines. As I said earlier, we are changing our approach in the more technical field. Uh, the session is about Azure DevOps and how we can implement the quality assurance and what are the best practices for it in our Azure DevOps pipelines. Quite an interesting theme, and I'm really excited for this session. Luckily, Harin is able to present at this time, so I'm going to thank her and I'm going to add her to the stage. I hope, Harini, are you ready to join us?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready here.
Hi, and welcome. Thank you so much for being able to present today in our group. We are excited to have you with us. You can just introduce yourself and then the stage is yours.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you, Constantinus, for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this wonderful session. So I am leader in technology and primarily focusing in quality assurance test automation, and I have been helping organizations improve their testing landscape by incorporating test automation, DevOps practices, and such initiatives. So I'm going to get started here. I'm going to be presenting my screen and we can dive right into the session.
Great. That's great. Thank you.
So I'm trying to see if I can present my screen. Cool. Okay. Let me know if you're able to see the presentation.
Yes, we are seeing your screen. Great.
Awesome. Okay. Cool. Okay, so let's imagine a world where software releases are fast, smooth, and bug-free, right? So this is exactly what we strive for when it comes to DevOps using Azure pipelines. How do we ensure that the quality at every stage of deployment is, to the best? Today, during the session, we will be exploring how to implement quality assurance best practices in Azure DevOps pipelines, and I'm very excited to be here today to talk about something very crucial in modern software development, which is quality assurance in Azure DevOps pipelines. So here is the agenda that we'll be covering today. So we are going to be talking about what is DevOps. We're going to be introducing Azure DevOps and quality assurance, why quality assurance in DevOps pipelines matters, what strategy we are going to be following, and how to set up automated testing in Azure DevOps. We'll be having a quick demo, and then we'll be talking about the best practices, like how to incorporate automated testing, how to create best test plans, and how to track the metrics. And we will also be covering quality gates, which also becomes an essential part of this entire pipeline process. And then we'll be wrapping up with conclusion and key takeaways. Okay. So, what is DevOps? DevOps is the union of people, process, and products to enable continuous delivery of value to your end users. Right. So earlier, when we did not have the possibility of DevOps, things were more cumbersome, and we did not have a continuous delivery, continuous integration, and because of that, the time it took to release to market, it was very tedious, and it was again, prone to bugs and things like that. Things were not streamlined. So DevOps gives us a platform where things can be more streamlined, and we are able to release the product to end customers at a much faster and streamlined pace. And when we come to Azure DevOps, as we all know, we have different components here. So again, this is the famous DevOps flow. So where we build, we plan, And then we have our continuous feedback, we deploy, right? And again, we integrate new features, and again, we build, and this process keeps going on and on and on. And this is how we are able to release product to customers at a much faster pace. So when it comes to Azure DevOps, we have different components. So one is Azure Boards. Azure Boards is where we are going to be adding all our stories, requirements, epics, whatever we want to call it, right? It's one place where we are able to organize everything. And then we have our Azure pipelines. So when it comes to Azure pipelines, these are going to be helpful to release and follow a specific process where we can include any quality assurance aspects, building, deploying any specific things, copying things, from one place to another place, or whatever we want in order to accomplish our end goal, which is releasing the system to the end customer. And we have Azure test plans. So Azure test plans, again, they play a key role when it comes to testing itself. And when we are actually demoing, we can take a look at how the whole Azure process would look like. We can take a look at the sample project. And again, we have Azure pipelines, which comes into part when we come into deployment stage. And then we have our application insights, right, where we are able to gather more monitoring and how the application is performing and things like that. And when companies incorporate DevOps, they achieve fast-paced deployment frequency, right? So it increases by around 46 times. And again, as we looked at, faster time to market. And there is going to be lower failures in production, which means there is going to be lower change failure rate. And based on the analysis, it looks like there was like 7 times less lower change failure rate. And again, the time for changes, lead time, it accelerates. And because of all this, the revenue is increased. And again, which means, the time to recover is much faster rather than waiting for days or weeks when there is issue in the deployment. So now let's talk about introduction of Azure DevOps and quality assurance. Right. So before we jump into quality assurance best practices, I wanted to start with the basics here. And as we saw, DevOps, again, is a Microsoft's cloud-based platform, which provides tools for source control, CI/CD pipelines, test automation, and for tracking overall. And again, it helps teams collaborate, automate deployments, and it also helps manage software lifecycles efficiently. But why do we need quality assurance, and why is it important in DevOps, right? So quality assurance, we make sure here that the software is of the highest quality. We are able to identify defects early in the process. So if you're able to identify defects earlier, then it means that we will be able to prevent failures in production. And we are also able to prevent defects. So how can we do that? So that's achieved by continuous testing in DevOps. So that's going to minimize the risk of the code that is released to production. And in addition to that, it's also going to help us enhance user experience by minimizing failures and downtime. And we need to remember that without proper quality assurance, even the DevOps pipelines can become a pipeline for failures, right? So what if we build a bunch of pipelines and there is no quality assurance in place? So that alone is not going to be sustainable and successful. So quality assurance comes in as a major part when it comes to the entire end-to-end process of DevOps pipelines. And now let's dive into how we can talk about the real world challenges that we face when we are integrating QA into DevOps. So what are some of the challenges that we face, right? So let's be honest here. So even with automation, quality assurance, and continuous integration, continuous deployment, it comes with challenges. And here are 3 main issues that the teams face. So the first one we're going to be talking about is slow test execution. So what does slow test execution mean? So let's say you have a bunch of automated tests and the test cases are running slow, right? So if the test cases are running slow and they're going to be plugged into the pipelines, it could mean that they're going to be slowing down the releases. So example can be, let's imagine running a full regression suite that takes like 4 to 8 hours before every release, right? So that is not something that is feasible. And the solution could be incorporating parallel testing, or it could be also optimized test suites And or it could also be like, where we are able to run tests in containerized test environments. So that way we are able to keep the tests to as quick as possible. And another approach to this could be to identify a subset of the major test cases, like probably lean test case, lean regression suite. So that way we are able to keep down this test execution as minimal as possible while covering the major aspects, critical functionalities of the application, so that we know that, okay, so the application is going to be performing well because it's passing the critical scenarios, and then we can move on to the next step. And the next challenge that we talk about here is inconsistent test environment. So what does this inconsistent test environment mean? Have you heard, like, when we say it worked on my machine, right? So we've seen instances where something would work on your machine, but then when you deploy it, it's not going to be working, right, in a different environment. So that's where this inconsistencies in test environment comes into picture. So this means that the dev, test, and production environment can be way off, and due to this, it could lead to unexpected failures. So we want to make sure that the test environments are as consistent as possible, so that we could prevent these kind of inconsistencies, failures, surprises from happening at later stages. And solutions for this could be to use infrastructure as code, and to make sure that whenever you're going to be creating new environments, they are following the same standardized approach, so that you have a more standardized test environments. And this is, eventually it's going to be preventing a lot of surprises towards the end. The third challenge is lack of test automation coverage. So relying too much on manual testing, it can absolutely slow teams down, right? So what is the solution here? So the solution is to automate unit integration and functional and performance tests as well. So the key to solving these challenges are a well-defined quality assurance strategy, right? So that becomes very critical to handle these kind of challenges. So now let's move into the quality assurance strategy. And I would say that's very important when it comes to the overall DevOps practice in Azure pipelines. And as we all know, an effective QA strategy, it starts with shift left testing. So let's look into what shift left testing is. Shift left testing means to identify bugs earlier in the deployment cycle, right? So why is it important? Detecting bugs as early as possible is going to help us save a lot of time and effort, and also going to speed and accelerate the deployment cycle. And we want to make sure that we encourage developers to write unit tests, and we want to make sure that it is also executed as we move forward. So write unit test as early as possible during the development phase, and that's going to help us a lot later. And when we look at the test pyramid, right? So first we have our unit test. And why do we have unit test in the bottom of the test pyramid? It's because testing early and testing often is going to eventually prevent defects later in the stage. The next strategy that is important here, next point when it comes to shift left testing is it also reduces rework costs by catching the issues way before the deployment phase rather than it coming later in the stage. And one more major aspect here is to automate testing in CI/CD pipelines, right? So when we talk about shift left testing, we want to make sure that we are able to incorporate this testing as early as possible in the pipelines, and it is of automated nature, so we are able to run our tests in each stage during this deployment process. And overall, towards the end, it's also going to be enhancing collaboration between the quality assurance and the development teams. So when we look at the image here, we have all the phases of our SDLC, right? So we have our requirements, we have design, we have coding, testing, acceptance, and all that. And when you look at the arrow of testing, it goes towards the left, and this is what shift left testing means. And again, like we saw, the advantages are it's going to reduce the cost, it's going to improve the efficiency, and it's obviously going to improve the quality, and eventually it's going to give us a competitive advantage, right? Because we started our testing earlier in the past process, and this can be very well accomplished using DevOps, because everything is automated there, and Azure DevOps gives us a wonderful platform to achieve all of this in one place. And now let's talk about the different layers of testing. So when we talk about the different layers of testing, we have our unit tests. So what are unit tests? So they are quick tests that developers run for individual components. And integration test, they are more around middlewares and APIs. So when we talk about integration test, it's going to be validating different parts of the system, that the system communicate effectively. We want to make sure that if there are multiple middlewares, APIs, the communication is good, there are no issues, right? Because of if there are any breaking changes, then we will need to handle things like that. So this comes very essential when the system is going to have a lot of integrated upstream and downstream systems that talk to each other. And functional tests, these are again key when it comes to ensure that the system behaves as expected from the user's perspective. And then comes the performance and security tests. So these tests are important in measuring scalability, stability, and also the security vulnerabilities. A key decision in any quality assurance strategy comes when it comes to choosing, we need to go to either the manual testing or the automated testing approach. So manual testing can be best when it comes to exploratory testing, UX testing, or when we're testing extremely complex scenarios, or let's say we are going to be doing a one-off testing, right, where automation doesn't make sense. So in those scenarios, manual testing would be very beneficial. But when it comes to automation testing, it would be best for any regression tests. So regression tests are the tests that you're going to be running over and over again, and to make sure that any new changes in the application, it does not impact the functionality of the application, right? Or it does not introduce any bugs. So when it comes to regression testing, automation testing becomes very essential. And again, we have another aspect which is called API testing. So it's always a good practice to automate API tests, because they are, again, the main core of the system. And in addition to that, if you have any load test, right, or any repetitive test cases, it could also be like any kind of database testing. Any such test cases, it would be very helpful if you're able to automate it. So now I'm going to be taking some time and going into setting up automated tests in Azure DevOps pipelines. So when we come to automated tests itself and setting them up and planning them in DevOps pipelines, it becomes very critical to ensure certain aspects are covered here. So we want to make sure that the integration is seamless, right? We don't want it to be very obvious that something is happening and with lot of manual intervention involved. So this should be like very smooth. It should be a seamless process and integrated in such a way. And we also want to make sure that we are able to trigger automated tests on every code commit as possible, right? And again, this goes to the previous point where we were talking about the importance of testing early and testing often, right? So add unit tests or any other, for example, contrast tests to every commit as possible. So we are able to identify any breaking code or bugs earlier in the process. And we also want to make sure that we are able to incorporate parallel execution so that the testing speed is increased. So the benefits of this are, again, you're going to get a faster feedback loop. The test coverage is going to increase. And again, we're going to have consistent testing across production, quality assurance, or any of the lower environments. And here are some of the test frameworks that are supported. So we could use unit tests. So for unit test, we could either use MS test, Microsoft test, NUnit, or we could use JUnit. And for UI test, we can use Selenium, Cypress, Playwright. API test, we could use like either REST assured, or if you want to trigger Postman tests. And load testing is JMeter. And for security testing, we can use like tools like SonarQube, Zap, or such tools if you want to go with the end-to-end, very elaborated test approach. So I'm going to be taking like a second, 2 seconds here to stop my sharing and go on to a different window where we will be looking at a different screen. So that's going to give us the ability to look at the actual demo here. Okay, so here, so can someone confirm if we are able to see the DevOps screen here?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So here we have a very basic project for demo purposes. And what we are doing here is I have like two different projects here. So one project we are going to be looking at how pipelines can look like when it comes to test automation. And for anyone that is new to DevOps, I wanted to take some time and go over how this looks like and what are the different functionalities available here. So right now, I am actually in an organization. So like you see here, DevOps Pro 11 is the organization that I created. And by the way, if anyone wants to play around with it, it is all free. You can create a DevOps account and Microsoft account, and you can sign into this and most of the features here. I mean, at least I believe it's a trial, but if you want to play around, you can like definitely explore this. And here I have an organization that is set up. And when I look at the organization, I can have multiple projects. So here I have, for example, a demo project, and then I have a Selenium project, and then I have like another shuttle project. And there is also something called as Azure DevOps Demo Generator. So again, it would be very helpful if someone is looking to explore how these different projects would look like. And if we go and choose the template here, we see all these different kind of templates, and each of this is going to have its own type of projects. So for example, this one, Parts Unlimited, it's an ASP.NET application. It's following Scrum. And similarly, if we want to try this, it has some data AI, it has some agile concepts and React as well. So the projects that you see here are generated based on this, and I used the Parts Unlimited application. So here on the right hand side, so again, this is the introduction page, and it's going to talk more about this project. And then we have the project statistics. The board, it's going to tell how many work items were created. So if you want to look at the boards here, so let's go here. So we are in the summary, and there are some dashboards, right? So this dashboard is going to give me an overview of how this Parts Unlimited project looks like. So for example, here, it's going to have a welcome section. And then here, if I have any tasks assigned, it's going to be showing up. And then we have any bugs, right? So any bugs that were created, any work in progress, and how was the sprint, and who is the team. So this is going to give me an overall view of the entire project. And it's like, one place where you can go and figure out, the overall status of this project. And here it's going to show us the different user stories. So let's go on to boards and we can talk more about user stories. So the board section is going to contain all the different work items. And the work items can be either epics features, right? So they are all like high-level work items, or it could also contain any actual task. So this task can be a task created for me, and then it's going to tell, hey, these are the steps that we need to find. So in this case, the one that I just opened is a test case, right? And I think it would be very helpful in the current context. So in this test case, it says we are going to be validating that a tentative date is displayed for shipping the product. And then we have different steps here. And when we look at it, it has a summary place, and then it has associated automation. So in the real world instance, when we are talking about our DevOps pipelines and how to integrate our test cases, the first step would be to create test case repository separately, automated test case repository, and plug in that automated test to the associated test automation. So this way we are able to tie the manual test cases. So the one that we are seeing here right now, the steps, this is a manual test case. And this way we are able to link the manual test case to an automated test case. So this is the automated test case, and we have the manual test case. So when we are going to be creating our pipelines, it is automatically going to be executing the relevant automated test for this manual test case. And now when we go back to work items, we have a lot of other types of tasks created here. It could be either like this is a feature. So a feature is a high level. And within this feature, we can have like multiple links, which can have. So this is epic, right? So this epic is going to have a lot of features, and then features will have a lot of work items. So that's what the boards are. And when we move on here, we again have sprint, backlog. So in backlog, we are able to add any kind of functionalities that we want that are not groomed yet. And that would be a part of a future release. And then we have different sprints here. So sprint is, it could be a 2-week sprint or 3-week sprint, or however the team is, set up. And sprints can have multiple work items, and during the end of the sprint we are able to take like a few work items and we are able to deliver it towards the end of the sprint. And then we also have queries here. So queries are going to give us the ability to pull any tasks or test items. So for example, if I want to get all the bugs, then I can add a bug here and I can run the query, and it's going to show me all the bugs in the specific board. So now we looked at the boards, and I mainly wanted to go through this to anyone that is new to DevOps to give some additional context there. And now after we looked into the boards, I'm going to be discarding the changes from my query. I don't want it saved. And then we are going to go to another important aspect here, which is the repos, right? So what are repos? Repos are the actual source code that you have for your project. And in this example, as I said, this was generated through the demo generator. And this is the source code that we have. And again, it's an ASP application, and we have like all the different source code here. Right? So this is a website, and it's going to have all the different ASP.NET components. And in addition to that, we also have some test cases in this project. So the test cases here are, we have some Selenium tests. We have some unit test, right? And again, unit tests are generally created during the earlier phases, and they are helpful in validating smaller aspect or a smaller feature of the application. So here we have unit test, and again, we have like a lot of utils. For example, this is for a specific query, and we have any scripts that you want, right? So scripts in the sense, let's say you want to copy data from one place to another in order to have your tests execute, right? So those kind of things can go within the scripts itself. And again, here we have the solution file. So the repo itself is residing here, and it depends on the project itself. So in this project, we have our test cases within the project, right? So here we have our test cases, and generally unit tests are within the project, unless you really want to have it outside. Unit tests are like most of the times they are within the project itself. But let's say automated tests, like we have API tests or we have UI tests, they are generally maintained like outside the project. But in this scenario, it is maintained inside the project. It's totally up to the teams how they want to maintain it. And now when we go to the repos, we have the different commits, right? So the commits we are going to be, so let's say I want to update a file. If I want to update a file, I can just click on the file, I can update it. And then it's going to be, and when I push it, it's going to be adding the changes in the actual repo, in the actual master branch or wherever. So right now I'm in the master branch, but there are also other branches here, right? So if I want to create these changes in a different branch, I can also add my changes to a specific branch as well. Master branch, it generally contains all the consolidated set of changes that we that we commit. And then we have pushes. Pushes are like any changes that we did. And again, we have different branches. So as we see in this code, we have like a lot of different branches, and each branch, it can serve a specific purpose. So in this case, it looks like a separate branch was created for testing. And again, we have a separate testing branch, right? And there is another branch created for performance testing, and so on. And then we have pull request. So pull request is if I want to add any changes, then I can create a pull request and I can have like anyone approve the pull request so that I can merge it, and then it could be used. It could be like eventually pushed into my code. So now we are going to be looking into the pipelines, and I think this is critical in this session. So when we look at the pipelines here, it's going to be talking about all the different pipelines that I have, right? So in this project, currently, I just have one pipeline, and my name of the pipeline is Parts Unlimited. And again, as we see, it says like, it has a specific version here. And let's look at what it exactly means. So when I click this pipeline, I'm going to edit this pipeline. And this pipeline is very, very essential when it comes to execution or orchestration of the entire application code. So pipelines help us to move the data from one place to another. And for example, especially, when I say move, it means like releasing the data from one environment to another. And pipelines are going to have additional tasks. So in this scenario, and again, the pipelines can be coded. So this is one of the ways of how you can create pipelines. So this is by YAML file, YML extension. And in this instance, we are going to be having a VM image. And the reason that we have an image here is because these pipelines, these are executed in virtual machines. VM is virtual machine. And here we are going to be using a Windows 2019 machine. And if you want to be triggering it, spinning it up in a different kind of an environment, we can certainly add that configuration here. And then we have different variables that we are passing, right? So for this, the build, we are going to be choosing any CPU, and this is going to be a release version. And here we have different stages. So the first stage here is it's going to be build and test. As a part of that, we want to make sure that we are installing packages, because to build my application, I may have certain packages that I'll need to install. So that's what we are doing in this place here in these steps. And then we have, again, VS build. So we are building a bunch of steps. And now we are running our unit test. And this is what we mean by triggering tests within the pipeline. So these unit tests, again, it depends on what kind of environment you want to run it in. So let's say you want to run that unit test in just the dev environment, then we can configure in such a way. So in this example, we are running unit tests, and display name, it's going to say run unit test. And I can show you, as we're going to be running the pipeline, that's going to give us a better understanding of how each of the step will look like. So here we are going to be running the unit test. And again, any kind of assemblies or DLLs, that you want to trigger, it is going to be given here. So in this instance, I'm going to be giving this DLL file, which means that it's going to be triggering whatever is there within this repository. And later, it is also going to be displaying, adding my files, test results in a specific file. It's going to be in an XML file, and we have the file here. And then similarly, so we saw unit test, and likewise, we can add API test, for example, right? So if you want to run API test, we need to install Newman, and then we are going to be running the tests. And here is my Postman collection to run the API test. So the main thing that we want to be giving the YAML file is if you need to have any prerequisite for running the test. And in addition, and if there is prerequisite, then we can add it as a script. And then if we want to run the specific test, we can also give that information here. So it knows where to run each test. And here we are also adding unit test after this specific step, which means that it's going to be aligning in a specific fashion so that the tests are run after certain stages. Okay, so that gives us the flexibility to run tests at specific stages. And at the same time, if you want to be adding anything specific, like after the whole thing is complete, for example, if I want to trigger load test, then that is possible as well. Accordingly, we can update this file. So now we saw this this specific pipeline. Let's go and let's try to run a new pipeline here. So now I triggered my run, and as we can see here, a new version is created. And this icon shows that my pipeline is queued. Queued in the sense it's going to take like a couple of seconds for it to execute. And now, yeah. And now when we go back here, it says it started execution, and we have this repo, and we are in the master branch. And then it also says how long it has been since this whole thing started. And we look at the jobs, and then it's going to show us build and test. So when I click this, it is going to be giving me exact steps that happens when the pipeline is executed. And it's also going to show us logs as to what exactly is happening behind the scenes. So in this scenario, the job that we have here is build and test. So as a part of this, we are building the application. We are adding any packages, right? So for example, here we have a NuGet package. So that is also happening as a part of the YAML pipeline. And then we are running a set of commands. So if we go back here, it's going to tell exactly what is happening. So it's running in a specific operating system. And here is the agent where it's running. And again, this is happening in VM, right? So it's going to give us all the different steps that happened as a part of the stage. And then there is also this checkout happening, where it's going to be getting the sources from repository, and it's going to be, this is the Git repository. And as we see here, it is going to parts unlimited. And then it is copying any kind of objects or anything that it needs in order for the application. And then we are having the tools. So here the tools are installed. And then again, we have the get command, right? So these are all, so whatever we are seeing here are a part of the actual building a prerequisite that is needed so that the entire application can be deployed. And then we have the build phase here, so where the application is actually getting built. And after this, we are running the unit test, right? So, and this was the one that we saw in the YAML file. Typically, it is done in the early stages of development, and we are going to be executing this specific DLL. And once the unit tests are executed, and then we are going to be publishing the results, and the unit test results are going to be in a specific XML file. And now the API tests are executing, and then that's it, right? So this is an example of an end-to-end pipeline. And the one that we are seeing here is a basic pipeline, but in real-time scenario, this is going to be more complex, where we can incorporate, like, if you have pipelines for certain environments, like for example, dev, or if you want to promote code to QA, then, what kind of steps should you execute? What kind of tests should you execute? And again, when the pipeline is promoted, when the code is promoted to QA int or to any other UAT environment, right? So if there is anything specific that you want to add, we could also add, things like this. So this is a very important process when it comes to the actual end-to-end testing itself, and when it comes to the success of DevOps. So now that this pipeline is running, I'm going to be going back and showing another example of a Selenium pipeline. So in this example, we are just going to be showing how Selenium executes. And when I look at the YAML file here, so here we have a Selenium YAML file. And again, this is for any UI functional test that we have. So in the real world scenario, all this is going to be in one file. Again, it depends on your needs, right? If you really want everything in one YAML file, then that's fine. But it can be tailored accordingly. So in this scenario, we have a Selenium a script that is going to be executed. And again, we have Windows image here for the VM. And again, we have like some tools that we are executing, like which is the NuGet packages that we are executing. And before, the building phase, and there are some copying that is happening before these tests can be actually executed. So for example, when we look at it, the source is a specific folder, and then we are actually getting it to a different folder so that these tests can be executed. So when we look at this one, again, this is an example. And since the other pipeline is running, I'm just going to be showing how this pipeline was actually executed. So now, as we look at it here, similarly, we have our initialization phase, and then we are checking out any code that is needed. We are installing packages, and we are copying files. And all this, it depends on, again, your specific use case, however we want it. In certain instances, this may not be needed. But here we are doing some additional prerequisites, and then we are finally executing the Selenium tests, and it's cleaning up certain things, and then we are done with our entire test. So now I'll show you how this exact run is going to be looking like. So this is the test run. And again, when we look at the test plans, so since I'm using a trial version, we will not be able to see the entire test plan itself. But test plan is an amazing place where it gives us the ability to see how, what kind of test cases you have, what is a test plan, how many test cases have been executed, what is the pass, what is the fail rate, bugs, right? So it's going to give us an entire view of the entire testing landscape. And we go to the progress report. Again, since we don't have any test plans here, it's not going to show us any progress. But when we look at the runs, this is the run from our Selenium latest execution. And when we look at it, it's going to show us clearly how the test is going to look like and what was the run type. Again, this is an automated test, and who is the owner. And it's going to tell us how many test cases passed. So in this example, when I ran my test cases, 14 test cases passed. And again, it's going to show us, the outcome if we want to prioritize the test cases, or if we would have set certain configurations, it's going to be showing based on that. And then if there were any failures, it's going to be showing those as well. In our instance, everything passed, so we do not have any specific failures here. So this is how the run summary will look like. And again, these were the different tests that were executed as a part of my test, as a part of the pipeline that we just executed. And again, this says the test case passed, right? And like this, it's going to be showing me a summary of all the different test cases that were executed. Okay, so this gives us a great way for us to see how the test cases were and where we are in terms of our testing. And this could also be a great place where we could also generate reports, and this could be used as an overall summary report that we want to show in for our testing automated tests and things like that. So now I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to go back to my previous presentation. Okay, so this is where we were, and we saw how automated tests can be set up in DevOps pipelines. And now we are going to be talking about the best practices, right? And I think this is very, very essential when it comes to actually implementing our end-to-end quality assurance within our DevOps pipelines, and eventually making sure that we are able to release the best quality product to our end customers. So when we talk about best practices, and now that we saw automation in action, here is what works well with Azure DevOps quality assurance. So we want to make sure that we are able to automate tests at every stage. So what does that mean? It may not be just enough to automate just the regression part alone, right? So we want to make sure that we are able to automate unit tests, or if you want to have like a lot of integrated systems, then we are able to automate contract tests, right? So that we are able to see if the systems are talking to each other. So automating just regression tests may not be sufficient. And we also want to make sure that we are able to have the right tools and frameworks so that we are able to have end-to-end test coverage as possible. So what do I mean by this? Um, let's take, for example, Selenium test, right? So Selenium UI test or Playwright, Cypress, or whatever we are going to be using. So those may not be able to actually validate the visual aspects of the application. They may be able to validate the functional aspects of the application, but not the visual aspects. So it would be helpful if we are able to add additional aspects of testing like visual coverage, right? Like using certain tools for example, if you have certain tools like Backstop, for example, for taking screenshots, right? So that would be a whole together a different aspect. And things like this can come in very handy when it comes to ensuring the quality of the application. And in addition to that, we want to make sure that we are able to maintain reliable and scalable test suite. And I think this is very critical. And this is where time can be of essence because, again, if we are very elaborate when it comes to testing, certain tests can take a long time. And maintenance is a key aspect when it comes to DevOps, because if the test fails, if even if one or two tests fail, sometimes it can be very unreliable, and it may also in certain instances may not be able to promote the code into the next environment if you have like certain kind of gates, which we'll be seeing in the next step. So key here is to maintain a reliable and scalable test suite. And the next important aspect here when it comes to best practices is creating robust test plans. So when it comes to robust test plans, we want to make sure that we have clear objectives and we have clear test coverage. We want to include functional as well as non-functional aspects, regression as well as exploratory testing. And we also need to prioritize critical user journeys and edge cases so that if something fails, then we are able to identify it earlier in the process. Quality metrics also is very essential here. Like we saw before, using the dashboards and things like that. So it's going to help us ensure the overall pipeline performance. And in addition to that, we also have a parallel test execution, right? So parallel test execution is very essential when it comes to executing tests at a much faster pace. And it's also going to reduce the execution time by optimizing test data and if there are any dependencies, and implementing quality gates before deployment. So this is a very important aspect which we would be looking at in the next slide. So I'll save this for the next slide. And then monitoring the test results with Azure DevOps test plans, right? So this is something that we just saw, where monitoring of the results becomes very essential. So just triggering may not be helpful, but we also want to make sure that we are able to monitor the results and see if there are any failures and then act accordingly. And finally, give a sign off to see if the product is ready to be released eventually to end customers. And we can also leverage Power BI for any advanced analytics for us. So now we are going to be talking about quality gates. So think of quality gates as security guards for your CI/CD pipeline. They ensure that only the high quality code makes it to production. So you're going to be having certain gates at certain stages, and you're going to be releasing the code to the next stage only if certain standards are met. And these standards are totally up to the teams to come up with. And as we saw, quality gates are rules that enforce test validation before the code moves to production. And it helps prevent deployment of any unstable or any insecure or code with bugs to production. And in certain organizations, there can also be compliance aspects. So this also comes in very handy there. So how do you configure quality gates in Azure DevOps? So when it comes to this part, we will have to define what the pass fail conditions are. For example, you can say that if 5% of the test case fail, right, then block the deployment, don't do the deployment. Or let us say that we have incorporated code coverage aspects. Then we can, for example, say that at least 85% of code coverage is needed for approval for promoting the code to the next phase. And in addition to that, let's say we have some ZAP test cases, which are mostly security related test cases. So those could also be added, and we could also control the deployments in such a way that if any security aspects fail, then do not deploy to the next environment. So when it comes to the actual configuration itself, this can require manual approvals. So for example, we can also configure the approval workflows to include team leads or quality assurance folks or any security experts, so that they are able to give some manual approvals for the quality, for the quality gates. And it also helps us prevent any unintended deployment by forcing additional checks and verification so that the code does not get deployed accidentally. In addition to that, as we saw, we can also include code coverage thresholds. So for example, like you could block the deployment if the code coverage is not following specific thresholds. And this is an example of how quality gates would look like. So again, as we see here, we have our pipeline, and then we have dev stage. Before dev stage, we see that specific icon there, which means there is some pre-deployment conditions that need to be satisfied. And here we are going to be adding gates, and this gates we can configure. And in this example, we have like Sonar Cloud. So for example, let's say that I need at least 80% of my unit test passing before I deploy my code to quality int environment, right? So those kind of configurations can be set up. And in this case, this has been enabled. So now we are going to be moving into the next slide, which is, I think, the last slide before our conclusion. So which is test data management and reporting. And this, again, is one of the essential aspects when it comes to quality assurance best practices, because we want to make sure that effective test data management and reporting, they are, again, they play a very critical role in the success of quality assurance in DevOps. In order to do that, let's start with mocking and service visualization to avoid data discrepancies. So test data management becomes very critical, and sometimes it can be very challenging to manage test data, because we want to make sure that the test data that we have is realistic without exposing sensitive information. And we want to make sure that the test environments are synchronized with production. And at the same time, we want to make sure that we manage large-scale test data efficiently. When it comes to best practices for test data management itself, mocking and service visualization becomes very important. So when it comes to mocking test data, we could do that using simulation. So by simulating APIs, by simulating databases or any services. And this can also help us enable early and independent testing without actually waiting for the whole end-to-end environment to be available, because in a lot of instances, the whole environment may not be available and still we may need to test certain aspects of the application. This is also going to help us improve test coverage, and it's going to improve testing bottlenecks. When it comes to generating detailed test reports in Azure DevOps, we can utilize built-in dashboards, as we see on the right, to track test execution results. And this is what we saw earlier, right? So during the Selenium test execution, we saw that the results were showed in a form of a dashboard, and it also has a lot of additional configurations like the one that we see in the screenshot. So it's able to give us a lot of different perspectives of the entire testing scenario. And we can also integrate automated test reports with the CI/CD pipeline itself, so that, again, when the pipeline is executed, you are able to see the test plan, and it also sends an email if needed after the execution. We can also use trend analysis so that we are able to improve any defect tracking issues, any defect tracking additional features that are needed, so that we are able to know and triage the defects accordingly. In addition to that, we could also integrate all this with Power BI. So we are able to track test execution trends. We will be able to get better understanding of the pass-fail rates and also the defect density. This also helps us gain deeper insights into the effectiveness of testing and how the pipeline performed overall. And in addition to that, it's also going to be generating reports where we can share additional key metrics with stakeholders. Okay, so before we wrap up, I wanted to summarize what we had seen in this section. Quality assurance in DevOps, it ensures faster, more reliable releases. By integrating continuous testing, teams are able to detect and resolve defects earlier in the process. And by this, they are able to lead fewer rollbacks, and they're also able to ensure smoother and faster deployments. We also saw how automated testing helps validate new features without slowing down the release cycle. And the another important key takeaway here is automated testing at every stage is critical, and it promotes overall software quality. So unit integration and functional tests and performance tests can be very important, and they should be embedded as much as possible within every stage of the pipeline. It is also important to have structured automation framework, and that's going to ensure critical, repeatable test execution practices. And we also saw about quality gates, where quality gates become very important if you need to follow certain compliance or need to follow certain process to prevent defective codes from progressing further into the pipeline. And we also saw about performance tests, how they can also be beneficial, and also security tests when it comes to especially the compliance and helping identify the vulnerabilities before they reach production. Now let us talk about the big picture. So when it comes to the big picture, implementing best practices for quality assurance in DevOps pipelines, we saw how it's important and critical to ensure software delivery, efficiency, and reliability. So by enforcing these policies and automating workflows, organizations can achieve continuous quality. At the same time, by maintaining rapid software releases, and in addition to that, what I wanted to share here is testing strategies should be evolving to accommodate new technologies framework. And as we see, it's an ever evolving industry, and we want to make sure that the pipelines are resilient to handle such changes. And it is also critical to review the pipelines regularly and refine these pipelines as we move on, and optimize the test case execution and feedback loops based on the prior historical performances. And it also becomes very critical to embrace cloud native solutions. And this is going to be leading more scalable and resilient applications. And there are also a lot of instances where AI can be powered for this purpose. And that is going to help us with, for example, defect protection, right? And it's also going to help us prevent defect leakage to the next stages. By leveraging all these Azure DevOps effectively and by following the best practices, teams are able to streamline workflows, and they are also able to achieve high quality standards. And eventually, by following this, the best practices that we used here, we would be able to increase efficiency, we would be able to improve reliability, and we are able to build confidence in every release. So with that, I would like to thank you all for your time and participation today. And it was wonderful to be presenting in the session, and I would pass it on to Constantinus for the next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Harini. That was an amazing session. Personally, I learned a lot. Quite an important aspect regarding DevOps. Thank you for being here with us, and we hope to see you in another event of ours.
Thank
Have a
you.
great weekend, Harini.
Thank you.
So, without further ado, I'm going to present you now to our next speaker. We have with us our own Maria. Γεια σου, Maria. Χαίρομαι πολύ που σε βλέπω απόψε. Σε ευχαριστώ που είστε μαζί μας. So, Maria is a Microsoft MVP. She's been already, it is 5 years or less?
I think 4.
4 years. He's 4 years an MVP, quite an active personality in the communities regarding Microsoft ecosystem. Uh, Maria is an expert on IoT mostly, but today's session is a little bit different, I would say, than the ones that we are used to with Maria. It's about C Sharp and Power Platform.
Mhm.
Well, that looks very interesting. So please introduce yourself and the stage is yours.
Hello all. Can I share my screen first?
Absolutely.
Okay, give me one moment, please.
Sure.
Mm. Mm. I think that you can see my screen now.
Yes, we can
Great,
see your screen. Great.
great. Hello again. I'm thrilled to be with you today in this beautiful and empowering event. And I would like to express my gratitude to Konstantinos for inviting me. Today, we'll be exploring how integrating C# in the Power Apps can unlock new possibilities, blending custom development with the efficiency of low-code platforms. As Konstantinos said, my name is Maria Anastasia, and I'm passionate about the wide range of things from cloud computing, IoT, AI, and robotics to ballet, traveling, and of course, spending time with my pets. Let me walk you through my journey so far to get to know me better. It all started with my diploma in computer engineering and informatics. During my studies, I discovered my passion for sharing knowledge, which led me to become a blogger and a speaker. This exposure to the tech community opened doors, and soon I was honored with the Microsoft MVP award in both IoT and later in business applications, a recognition that truly accelerated my career. Meanwhile, I joined BeWise as a software developer, where I apply what I love most, building smart solutions. My journey didn't stop there, though. Alongside my tech career, I've also been passionate about education. So, in my free time, I became a robotics educator, aiming to inspire the next generation. I wanted to deepen my impact in education, which led me to pursue a master's degree and eventually my current path as a PhD student in computational thinking. Throughout this journey, my passion for technology and education has intertwined, allowing me to explore how both fields can transform the way we think, create, and solve problems. And now let me give you a quick overview of what we'll be covering today. We'll start with low-code development and how it empowers faster solution building. Next, we'll explore the Power Platform and Dynamics 365, followed by a deep into coding with C# to enhance our applications. I'll show you three practical examples of how C# can transform Dynamics 365 experiences. Along the way, we'll focus on debugging techniques specifically for these scenarios. And I'll also share a roadmap to guide those interested in getting started with these technologies. And of course, we'll wrap up with a Q&A session to address your questions and provide valuable resources for further exploration. Let's begin by defining what low-code development actually is. Low-code is a visual approach to software development that allows us to build applications much faster by using minimal hard coding. Instead of writing thousands of lines of code from scratch, we can rely on visual tools and pre-built components to speed up the process. This approach not only saves us time, but also open up software development to a broader audience, including those who may not have extensive coding experience. So it's really about empowering more people to build and innovate. As we dive deeper into low-code platforms, let's take a look at some of the most well-known options in the industry. Each of these platforms provides a unique set of tools to help us build applications with minimal coding effort. OutSystems, Appian, Salesforce, and of course, Microsoft Power Platform. Before we're moving on, let me dive into the Microsoft Power Platform. The Power Platform is a set of tools designed to help us create, automate, and analyze data quickly and efficiently, even without advanced coding skills. Let's break down its core components that empower the creation of flexible and intelligent applications. At the top, we have Copilot, an AI tool that assists with content generation and automates various processes, enabling smarter solutions. Then we have the 5 core tools. Power BI provides data analytics and visualization capabilities, making decision-making more strategic and data-driven. Power Apps, a platform for developing custom applications, making it easy to build solutions with minimal coding. Power Automate, this tool enables automation for tasks and workflows. Power Pages, a tool for easily building websites for connected to our data, providing a way to share information and collaborate with external users. And Copilot Studio add advanced AI features to the platform, enabling even non-experts to create and train machine learning models. Next, we have Power Effects and Dataverse. For developers, these two are foundational. Power Effects is the low-code language that helps customize app behavior, while Dataverse offers a robust data management layer. Power Effects and Dataverse, combined with connectors, enable seamless integration with third-party services. And the AI Builder add advanced AI features to the platform. Finally, managed environments allow easy management of applications and data, maintaining high standards for security and governance. Now that we've explored the individual components of the Power Platform, let's take a look at how these tools are interconnected to form a unified ecosystem. This diagram shows the Power Platform as part of a connected and orchestrated platform that spans a variety of capabilities. Starting from the top, we see the collaboration suite. This suite brings together tools like Teams, Microsoft 365, enabling seamless communication and collaboration across the platform. Next, we have analytics and business intelligence, where Power BI plays a central role in delivering data insights and empowering decision-making. Moving on to process mining and AI capabilities, including conversational AI and Copilot, we see how AI enhance our workflows. These tools make it possible to analyze processes, gain insights, and even automate interactions with AI Builder and Copilot Studio. The platform then supports low-code applications and low-code websites. Here, Power Apps and Power Pages provide environments for rapid low-code development of both apps and web interfaces, making it accessible to create solutions without extensive coding. Following that, robotic process automation through Power Automate allows us to automate repetitive tasks, increasing efficiency and saving time. Then we have integration platform as a service, which alongside 1,200 and plus connectors ensures that our applications can integrate with other services and data sources seamlessly. The cloud data platform with Dataverse supports all these capabilities by providing a unified data source, and Azure Active Directory offers a strong identity provider, ensuring secure access across the platform. Together, these tools form a cohesive platform that empowers us to build solutions quickly, automate tasks, and scale our applications with ease. Imagine a scenario where you're building a custom CRM tool within Power Apps, using Power Automate for notifications, Power BI for analytics, and integrating with Teams for collaboration, all powered by Dataverse. This ecosystem lets you create a unified, scalable solution. Next, we have the last technology I want to introduce you, Microsoft Dynamics 365. So let me provide a brief overview for those who might not be familiar with it. Dynamics 365 is a set of connected modular software as a service applications and services built on Microsoft Azure, designed to transform business activities. Microsoft Dynamics 365 consists of CRM, ERP, AI, mixed reality, and modular intelligent business applications that offer a complete set of solutions across marketing, sales, commerce, service, finance, operations, and talent. It's integrated with productivity apps in Microsoft 365, such as Excel, Word, Outlook, and others, and seamlessly connected with Microsoft Power Platform. Now, many of you may be wondering, why discuss low code at the Azure's event? The motivation behind this presentation is to engage software engineers who, like me, may have the preference for coding, but haven't yet explored the possibilities of integrating their skills into a low-code environment. A couple of years ago, I discovered how interesting Power Platform development could be, even for someone who enjoys custom coding. Within low-code platforms, there remains a strong need for custom code. Clients often request features beyond the platform standard capabilities or seek integration with other systems. This is where developers skilled in custom code come in, helping to bridge those gaps and extend what the platform can offer. While low code can empower more users to build solutions, developers bring depth, creating complex logic, integrations, and customizations that citizen developers can't achieve alone. Now, one might ponder, why should I delve into low code instead of continuing with traditional software development? Compelling statistics from the reputable Gartner Group forecast that by this year, 70% of applications will be created using low-code or no-code platforms, leaving only 30% to traditional development methods. This signals a significant upward trend in the adoption of low-code and no-code platforms, presenting an opportunity for us to leverage this growing market. The surge in popularity can be attributed to the resource-intensive nature of traditional development, both in terms of human and financial resources. Additionally, the shift towards low-code options has accelerated, particularly in the wake of the pandemic, where businesses swiftly embraced the digital realm. While I firmly believe that traditional development will always have its place and enthusiasts, today's presentation aims to showcase an alternative. Even if you are a seasoned software developer, there is value in exploring low-code options due to their faster design and development processes, a direction the market is undeniably heading. This presentation serves as an introduction to this alternative path, providing insights into the changing landscape of software development. Now, let's consider one more compelling statistic. The well-known Forrester Group conducted a survey revealing that the market for low-code platforms is projected to reach a staggering $200 billion by this year. This sizable figure underscores the immense growth potential within the low-code landscape. As we witness this substantial market projection, it prompts us to ask, why not position ourselves within this dynamic market? The opportunities appear abundant, and it's an opportune time to explore and embrace the potential that this growing market offers. Microsoft has also recognized as a leader in previous year's Gartner's Magic Quadrant for enterprise low-code application platforms, give us confidence in choosing a platform that is both cutting-edge and widely trusted. Let's now move on to more technical paths. When working within Microsoft's low-code ecosystem, we primarily use these three languages: PowerFX, C#, and JavaScript. Each language has its own strengths, and it is suited to different types of tasks within Power Apps and Dynamics 365. First of all, PowerFX is a formula-based low-code language similar to Excel formulas, perfect for simple logic and calculations, as well as for defining app behavior without extensive coding. It's highly accessible and ideal for less complex but essential app functionalities. Next, C# is the powerhouse language in the Microsoft stack, geared toward developing secure, efficient, and scalable business logic. It's primarily used to implement complex functionalities, business logic computations, and data management by creating plugins that enhance or extend Dynamics 365 beyond standard capabilities. Last but not least, JavaScript, as you probably already know, shines in creating interactive and dynamic user experiences. It's commonly used to build custom user interface UI components that enhance interaction, allowing us to craft highly responsive applications that meet unique design requirements. Each language offers distinct capabilities, so choosing one depends on your application's specific requirements and goals. Today, we'll dive into C#, exploring how it integrates with Power Apps and Dynamics 365 to deliver robust and customized functionalities. C# enables us to create plugins that brings added functionality, seamless integrations, and efficiency to our applications. Ideal for those scenarios where out of the box isn't quite enough. Now, let's bring everything we've discussed to life. In this next section, we'll dive into 3 scenarios to see how custom code operates within the Dynamics 365 environment. Through this, we'll explore firsthand how integrating C# can enhance functionalities, streamline processes, and expand what's possible in Power Apps. Let's jump in and see custom code in action. We're starting with the simplest plugin I have ever made. Update the unique title to introduce you to plugin development. This plugin dynamically creates unique titles for project records in Dynamics 365. This plugin uses various attributes for related entities, to construct a custom title based on specific logic, ensuring that each project record has a distinct identifier. The plugin's main functionality is to trigger on create and update actions within the dynamic environment. It checks specific attributes like the project category, subcategory, location, and name. And by combining these attributes, the plugin generates a unique title for each project, which is particularly useful for tracking and organizing projects' records in complex data environments. This code follows Dynamics 365's standard plugin structure and uses essential services such as iPlugin execution context to handle the execution context, iOrganization service for operations on the Dynamics environment, and iTracing service to log information for debugging. Let's go through each part in detail. So at first, we initialize the plugin with two parameters, unsecure and secure, which allows us to manage any external configurations if needed. This constructor sets up the plugin type, preparing it for execution. Next, the execute CDS plugin method serves as the entry point. It retrieves the context and checks if the action is a create or update operation. When an operation matches, the plugin proceeds to process record when the core functionality lies. In this part, we have two main logic paths determined by the value of the variable origin. When origin is set to 1 or 2, the title requires 5 specific components: category, subcategory, name, country, and municipality. Each of these attributes adds unique context to the project, helping to distinguish records based on geographical and categorical details. For an origin value of 3, or this alternative value you can see in my slides, the title is simplified and only includes name, account, and invoice value. This version of the title focuses on key financial and account-related data, which is more relevant for certain types of projects or entities. This branching logic ensures that the unique title is always relevant to the project's characteristics and use case. Depending on the origin, the plugin dynamically adjusts the title structure to provide a clear and consistent identifier. This is the main part of the plugin, where we define the logic to build the unique title. The first section retrieves the origin attribute, which determines the project's type and influences the title building logic. If the origin attribute isn't available, the plugin retrieves it from a pre-image in update scenarios, providing a backup source of data. Using a series of regions, we build the title by adding various attributes in a specific order. The plugin checks if project category attribute exists and retrieves their names. If found, they're added to the unique title. This structure is repeated for the other fields too. We retrieve and add each attribute to the title, ensuring they're correctly ordered and separated by a dash. In this code block you can see in this slide, for example, we are defining how the name attribute contributes to the unique title. Finally, we save the constructed title to the Dynamics entity. This part creates an entity instance for the project entity, assigns the generated unique title, and uses the current user service to update the record. Moreover, the plugin includes robust error handling, logging any exceptions using tracing service. This section ensures any issues are captured and logged, essential for troubleshooting. In this demonstration, we explored how the C# plugin process Dynamics 365 data to construct a unique title focusing on attributes that reflect project identity. This approach not only organizes project record, but also leverages Dynamics rich data model to dynamically generate identifiers tailored to specific business needs. In this next example, we'll look at the sales document sum use case, which is part of a more complex plugin. This plugin integrates with multiple entities within CRM to manage and automate financial calculations across related records. This specific functionality is designed to maintain an up-to-date total value for each sales document by automatically summing all individual net values associated with it. This update occurs whenever a net value is created, modified, or deleted. By automating this calculation, we ensure that the total value always reflects the most current state of the sales document without requiring manual updates. By implementing this functionality, we achieve consistency and accuracy. The total value remains accurate, reflecting all changes. Efficiency, manual calculations are no longer necessary, which reduce errors and speeds up workflows, and real-time updates. Sales documents always display the latest total value, providing reliable information for decision-making. The code behind this functionality is extensive, so we will continue to the third use case. Let's dive into our third use case, preventing automatic invitations to attendees. In Dynamics 365 CRM, when you create an appointment, the system typically sends an automatic invitation to attendees. However, there are cases where you might want to create an appointment but prevent CRM from sending these invitations. While there's no built-in setting to disable this behavior, we can achieve it with a customized workaround. To address this, I developed a CRM plugin with a simple solution. The plugin includes a custom button in the CRM platform labeled "Do Not Send Invitation." When this button is set to no, the plugin automatically appends the text ... send no invitation to attendees ... to the appointment description. Once this text is added, I configured an exchange rule to delete any messages containing this phrase, ensuring that no invitation is sent to attendees. This multi-step process enables us to control invitation behavior directly from CRM. To make this work, an admin must configure a custom rule in Exchange. Here's how it's done. I had to access the Microsoft 365 Admin Center and log in with admin rights. Then navigate to Exchange and select Add a Rule to create a new rule. Next, set up the rule. For condition, apply this rule if the subject or body contains the phrase send an invitation to the attendees. For action, select delete the message without notifying the recipient or sender. And for rule mode, enforce the rule to ensure it's always active. When it's done, the Exchange configuration will work in tandem with the plugin to prevent automatic invitations. The C# code I developed for this plugin is designed to manage the automatic sending of email invitations when creating or updating appointments in CRM. The plugin's primary function is to append the design text to the description field if the button is set to no, which prevents invitation emails from being sent. This plugin actives in two scenarios: on creation of an appointment with any attributes, or on updates to attributes like optional attendees, required attendees, description, and invitation sent, our custom button. The Get Organization Service method handles core setup tasks by initializing parameters such as the plugin context and organization service, preparing the environment for the plugin's logic. The heart of this plugin is the process record method, which handles the key logic. It checks the appointment's description and the invitation sent status to determine if an invitation should be prevented. If the button is set to no, the plugin adds the send no invitation to attendees text to the description, signaling the Exchange rule to delete the email. A helper function called strip HTML tags uses regular expressions to strip out any HTML tags from the appointment description. This function ensures that the description is text only and clean, preventing issues with formatting in CRM. The plugin also includes error handling, one more time, to log any exceptions during execution. This is managed through eye tracing service, which allows us to monitor and troubleshoot any issues as they arise. So, for many low-code developers, debugging can seem challenging, especially when coming from a non-coding background. Here's a conversation I had with a former Dynamics 365 developer on X, previously known as Twitter, who shared his experiences. As you can see, he told me that Dynamics 365 gives him horrible flashbacks because he had to make plugins. He said that doing actual C# coding for the Power Platform was beyond convoluted and debugging was a nightmare. But in reality, debugging isn't as hard as it seems. With a few essential tools and practices, you can get comfortable and efficient with it. One of the most valuable tools for debugging plugins in Dynamics 365 CRM is the plugin registration tool. To start, you need to register your plugin and its steps within this tool, which sets up the environment for debugging. Next, attach the plugin registration tool to Visual Studio. This connection enables seamless integration between the tool and your development environment. Now you're ready to debug. As you know, with the plugin registration tool and Visual Studio setup, you can debug your plugins just as you would with any pure C# code. This approach lets you work comfortably within your usual debugging processes, making it easier to identify and fix issues efficiently. Let's now walk through a roadmap for getting started with Power Platform development. This roadmap is designed to help you build a solid foundation and gradually gain expertise in creating customized, powerful solutions. We will look at the key skills and tools to focus on, from understanding core Power Platform components to integrating data, using version control, and shaping essential coding skills. By following these steps, you'll be able to unlock the full potential of Power Platform and confidently develop solutions tailored to real business needs. To work effectively with the Power Platform, it's essential to be familiar with its product. Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Pages, Power BI, and Copilot Studio are core tools. Mastering them allows you to build and automate solutions quickly, responding to various business needs. To get started, I recommend hands-on practice by creating small projects with each tool. Microsoft Learn platform offers tutorials, and there are plenty of community resources where you can find step-by-step guides. Beyond the main products, these components help you build more powerful and integrated applications. Data connectors and Dataverse enable seamless data integration, essential for building scalable solutions. Learning this will give you the ability to handle data efficiently and connect with external services. PowerFX is worth learning to add logic to your apps, and AI Builder helps you bring AI functionality into your solutions. To dive in, start by exploring Microsoft Learn's content, or try incorporating these features into an existing project. Practice using connectors with popular services and experiment with AI Builder models to see how they enhance your apps. Version control is essential for collaboration and tracking changes, especially as projects become more complex. Tools like GitHub and Git will allow you to work collaboratively, track progress, and prevent issues by maintaining a history of your code changes. To start, I'd recommend learning basic Git commands and setting up a GitHub repository for your Power Platform projects, even if you are working alone. This practice will make it easy to manage and share your work. Being able to quickly find solutions is a vital skill. Using Google or Microsoft Edge efficiently helps you access general knowledge, while Stack Overflow and Microsoft Communities provide targeted answers to technical questions. ChatGPT and Copilot can also be powerful for getting quick explanations or code suggestions. Improving your search skills can save you a lot of time. Practice by researching answers to common questions or troubleshooting issues you encounter. This will help you will help you solve problems faster and become more self-sufficient. Even though Power Platform is a low-code environment, coding skills are invaluable for creating customized solutions. JavaScript and C# are commonly used languages for extending platform functionality, especially when working with Power Apps component framework or PSF components or custom plugins. Strong debugging skills will help you resolve issues more effectively, especially in complex applications. To start, focus on coding fundamentals and debugging practices. Create small scripts in JavaScript or C# to use in Power Platform and experiment with Power Apps component framework to understand how custom components work. Now I welcome any questions you may have regarding this presentation, code development in low-code environments, or any related topics. Feel free to write your thoughts, and let's open the floor for discussion. But if you have no immediate questions, let's explore some valuable resources that I've gathered. First on the list is Microsoft Learn, an essential platform for every low-code developer. Following that, I highly recommend checking out Carl D'Souza's blog, the insightful D365 Demi-Satisfied blog, and Hubsite 365. These have been my go-to references when seeking assistance, and I'm confident they can be beneficial for you too. As we dive into these resources, let me also share my blog. In my blog, I focus on creating posts designed to assist beginners. Here, for example, is a series that guides developers through their first steps in Power Platform development. However, I also plan to share tips and solutions for more advanced challenges soon, so stay tuned. If you find today's presentation interesting or simply want to connect, let's stay in touch. You can catch me on X, where I'm active daily to weekly, depending on my the flow of the week. For a glimpse into my professional journey and key milestones in my career, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And for the easiest way to find all my links, including X, LinkedIn, and my blog, you can search you can search my bio link. It's, I think, extremely easy to remember this. It's bio.link/Maria. It's a one-stop hub housing all of my social media and various other links that I find useful. So I'm looking forward to staying connected. One more time, thank you so much for being here, and a big shout out to Konstantinos for providing this incredible event to discuss a topic that I'm truly passionate about. So thank you again.
Thank you, Maria. Truly amazing presentation. Do you mind discussing two questions? Do you have the time for two questions?
Yes, of course.
Okay. There are two questions of mine. First of all, I want to say that I really admire your diverse set of skills and the extent that you go to present us and share with us your findings, your lessons learned. It's remarkable. And again, thank you for this very interesting and valuable presentation. So here are the questions. The first one is, would you say that having the skills specifically in C# Can it help someone starting with Power Platform advance faster, or this is something that it is needed in the later stages of their journey? I don't know if
Mm,
you understood me.
yes, I think the second one,
Okay.
because at the first steps, you don't need so much the C# plugins, but I think if you have coding skills and the coding mindset, the engineering mindset, uh, you could be faster familiar with Power Platform. It
Yes.
it
Yes.
takes me little time to be familiar with it.
Okay. I guess this answers the second question was very relevant. The question was, is it mandatory or necessary to have these skills while you start? And I guess the answer is no. And you can start, exploring Power Platform, and then when you go to more enterprise level deployments, there you need it, right?
Of
And
course, of
one
course.
final one, and that's it from me. Um, Suppose that we reach that state of enterprise deployment, or we are hired in a company that has more needs. In that state, having these skills or not having them would be a blocker.
I think no, because the most of the Power Platform implementers, I think that they don't know to code, for example, C# plugins.
Yeah,
Actually, the company I work for, um, having me to make
develop. Yeah,
these
yeah,
custom plugins and not the low code developers, the citizen developers.
yeah, yeah. Gotcha. So it is like an added value there for someone having these skills. Great,
Yes, of
great.
course. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So thank you, everyone. Big thanks to Maria Anastasia, for being with us today. Hopefully, we will see her in another session of ours. Stay tuned. This stream will stay on YouTube and LinkedIn. Maria, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Bye bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Have a great night. Bye bye.